Hey, what's up? What's going on? Welcome to English with Dane, a podcast designed to improve your English. As always, I'm your host, Dane, and you can find me on Instagram at English with Dane. Today, we're going to play a little guessing game. I'm going to play a short clip from a famous movie, and you're going to have to guess which movie it's from just by listening to what they're saying. Simple. If you recognize a name, a voice, the music, etc., you'll have a leg up, an advantage. So let's get to it. You are listening to the 23rd episode of Season 2 of English with Dane. Hit it. Okay, we have officially started the show, so let's start with our Guess the Movie challenge. These clips, by the way, these fragments are slightly longer than the accent challenge clips, so I'm only going to play them once. I want to explain some of the expressions and vocabulary from each clip, and I don't want the episode to be too long. By the way, these movies have all come out, han salido, within the last 10 years. All right, first clip.
The next bridge is 6 miles. We'll have to divert.
I can't, sir. I don't have the time.
Of course. Best of luck.
Thank you, sir.
Corporal, if you do manage to get to Colonel Mackenzie, make sure there are witnesses.
They are direct orders, sir.
I know. But some men just want the fight.
Thank you, sir.
Driver! Move off!
Right, you might have a good idea of where this clip is from, but before I tell you, let's talk about what they said. One of the speakers said, if you do manage to get to Colonel Mackenzie, make sure there are witnesses. Asegúrate de que haya testigos.
If you do manage to get to Colonel Mackenzie, make sure there are witnesses.
If you do manage to get to. Okay, two things I want to talk about or address here. The first one is to manage to do something. This means to succeed in doing something. Lograr hacer algo. After to manage to do something, we use the verb in infinitive. In this case, get. If you do manage to get to, si logras o si consigues llegar a. Another thing I wanted to point out, que quería destacar, he says, if you do manage to get to. Why is there a do there? It's not a question, right? If you were thinking that, excellent instincts. We use do in this situation because we are talking about a hypothetical situation. And we're talking about the scenario in which, en el cual, the person succeeds. Let me give you an example. Hey, if you don't get home late, give me a call. But if you do get home late, we can just talk tomorrow. So it's not the same do as in a question. It's just to highlight or emphasize the affirmative or positive hypothetical situation. So the question remains, do you know what movie this clip is from? It's from 1917. If you didn't guess correctly, don't worry, you have 4 more. And if you did guess correctly, great job. All right, next clip.
You don't eat lunch?
I've got a scene after lunch.
Yeah?
Eating lunch before I do a scene makes me sluggish. I believe it's the job of an actor, and I say actor, not actress, because the word actress is nonsensical. It's the actor's job to avoid impediments to their performance. It's the actor's job to strive for 100% effectiveness. Naturally, we never succeed, but it's the pursuit that's meaningful.
I really like this scene. And surprise, surprise, there's also some interesting vocabulary in this one. She said, eating lunch before I do a scene makes me sluggish.
Eating lunch before I do a scene makes me sluggish.
Sluggish, spelled Sluggish, means slow or inactive. It's that feeling after having a big meal where everything te da pereza. A slug is a babosa. I'm assuming it comes from that. Slugs move really slow, so you're like them. You're sluggish. She also said nonsensical. If something is nonsensical, it doesn't make sense, right? Nonsensical, easy one, but not a very common word. So maybe learn it and impress someone later in life if you want. This clip is from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I watched it recently, so I thought I would include it. All right, clip number 3.
I hadn't a lot of hope to begin with, but after so long, I had none. My supplies were completely exhausted. The last time I went to sleep, I didn't even set a waking date. You have literally raised me from the dead.
Lazarus.
That's from one of my favorite movies of all time, but who cares? Vocabulary check. My supplies were completely exhausted.
My supplies were completely exhausted.
Exhausted means he ran out of whatever he had, right? There's nothing left. We usually use the word exhausted to say that we are really, really tired. I'm exhausted after working all day, for example. You've probably heard it in that context more often. Important pronunciation tip, by the way. Don't say exhausted. The sound is aw, okay? Exhausted. He also said, the last time I went to sleep, I didn't even set a waking date.
The last time I went to sleep, I didn't even set a waking date.
The verb to set in this case means poner, set the alarm, pon la alarma, set the table, pon la mesa, etc. So what movie is this from? Interstellar. That was Matt Damon's character talking, Dr. Mann. Hope you got it right. Next clip.
Let me get this out of the way. I think you're a wonderful actress.
Thank you.
I loved All Over the Girl, but the theater stuff, too.
You saw the theater stuff?
I was in New York last year for my book, which reminded me to give you a copy. And my publisher took me.
Great. Thank you.
You are awesome.
Well, Charlie directed it.
I know. He's very talented.
He is. They're moving it to Broadway. Well, without me, of course.
I was lucky to have you.
All right, so the expression to get something out of the way. It's the first thing one of the speakers says. She says, let me get this out of the way.
Let me get this out of the way.
So she needed to say something before they even talked about anything. To get something out of the way means to talk about something first thing, maybe because it's something uncomfortable to say, or maybe just because you really, really want to say it. The next thing I wanted to point out is a pronunciation thing. I noticed, me di cuenta, that when one of the speakers says, I was in New York last year, she connects the words last and year. And not only do they sound like one word, but there's a ch sound that connects them. Listen.
I was in New York last year.
I thought that was interesting. I think it's often hard to understand native speakers because you usually learn separate words and you start using them as pieces, right, to build a sentence. And in your mind, they're all separate parts. But then native speakers come along and combine sounds. They put words together and say them in a way that you aren't used to hearing. If you read what they say, you would for sure understand it. But when someone speaks those words, it becomes harder. Anyway, we need to answer the important question, what movie is this clip from? Marriage Story. You were hearing the voices of Laura Dern and Scarlett Johansson, ScarJo. And finally, our last clip.
This is space. It does not cooperate. At some point, everything's going to go south on you. Everything's going to go south, and you're going to say, this is it. This is how I end. Now, you can either accept that or you can get to work. That's all it is. You just begin. You do the math. You solve one problem, then you solve the next one, and then the next. And if you solve enough problems, you get to come home. All right. Questions?
Tricky. He used an expression I really like, although in this case, I think he means it literally. The expression is to do the math. Listen again.
You do the math. You solve one problem.
Again, in this case, he is probably talking about actual math, but the expression to do the math means to come to a conclusion based on relevant facts and figures. Let me repeat that. To do the math means to come to a conclusion based on relevant facts and figures. Let me give you an example. Here's a scenario. You ask your friend, hey, do you think Carlos and Joanna are dating? And she answers, of course they are. It's obvious. They always leave the office at the same time. They're always talking and laughing, and they've had lunch together 3 times this week. Do the math. So she's asking you to come to a conclusion based on relevant facts. Last thing, he also said you get to come home. If you solve enough problems, you get to come home. To get to do something, this means to have the opportunity to do something. In this case, come home. Maybe your friend is telling you about his vacation and says something like, it was incredible, we got to swim with the dolphins and everything. Saying I got to is much easier than saying I had the opportunity to. All right, but the most important question remains. What movie is this clip from? The correct answer is The Martian. And yes, that was Matt Damon making his second appearance in today's movie challenge. I thought I would try to make it a bit trickier and use him twice in 2 different space-related movies. If you got it right, congratulations. All right, that's it for the Guess the Movie Challenge. I hope you enjoyed it. Follow me on Instagram at English with Dane and let me know what you thought of this challenge. Was it too difficult, too easy, boring, fun, whatever? All right, don't forget to subscribe to English with Dane on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to the show. And remember, share it with friends, family, or anyone you think would enjoy it. All right, talk soon. Later.